He is a man who's making big waves in Tampa Bay, whose take-no-prisoners style in business has breathed new life into a professional soccer team, revitalized a failing performing arts center, turned a retail disaster into a shining success story, whose winning competitiveness has set St. Petersburg on a new course of growth and achievement. There is another side to this man who has done so much for downtown St. Petersburg. He has revitalized the heart of this city that was a financial disaster and an embarrassing eyesore, to be frank. But the man who has stimulated hundreds of millions of dollars in development by others from out of town. And when you ask him, who are you really? This is what he says.
I'm just a guy that has a great family, goes around town, and too silly to stop, so I keep on going and keep on working. I don't know why, I just do, you know, so.
So, this man has become one of Tampa Bay's most influential power brokers, and he has shaken the very foundation of St. Petersburg, Florida. Chronicle takes a close look at Bill Edwards. Bill Edwards came here from Detroit and created what became the largest VA mortgage lending business in the country. But costly federal regulations under the Dodd-Frank Act forced him out of business, and he had to lay off hundreds of people.
We couldn't compete in the mortgage business with veteran loans because they didn't let you take those kind of mortgages. Veterans were safe, thank God. And so we decided to stop doing mortgages and watch what happened. And what happened soon was things started melting away.
The Dodd-Frank Act of 2010 was supposed to protect consumers, but it melted away hundreds of small businesses, including small banks that cut car loans and home mortgages.
By August of 2007, there was about 350 or so. We were the only person that I know of that were lending money to veterans to save their homes and to get homes and to do whatever they wanted with their homes. But we went at knowing that the amount of regulation that was going to come at us was going to be unbearable, and it was going to be like a bomb dropped on us. And so we knew that going in, and we said, look, we're just going to work until they tell us to stop, and when they tell us to stop, we're done.
Chronicle featuring Bill Edwards will return after this. We now return to Chronicle featuring Bill Edwards.
And thus Bill Edwards was done with a mortgage business that brought him to town, but then he started looking at the very heart of St. Petersburg. And he began by spending $40 million to rebuild a shopping center in the heart of this city with high-end shops and restaurants called Sundial St. Petersburg. The project was enormous because he was replacing the very heart of the downtown shopping district called Baywalk that was plagued by poor planning, unruly teenagers, and lax security. Bill, you've turned this into a real showplace here with some high-end restaurants and specialty shops, but it was a mess to begin with. What happened here to Baywalk?
Well, you know, I think initially it was just too early for the town. You know, the town hadn't built around it yet. So it was kind of a premature. It was a great idea, just the wrong timing. And then coming back in, I think the timing was right. The city was ready to build, and this, I think, spurred the whole downtown from where it was to the growth that's happening now.
Sundial was immediately popular, and Bill Edwards was now clearly looking at the future of St. Petersburg and his place in it.
I wanted this oasis for everyone to come and walk through and get the things that they need, to go shopping and eat in the restaurants and go through the markets and everything, have a great time, and because they're surrounded by higher buildings. You know?
We've learned that you're more than a mortgage guy. You're more than a developer. You're an artist. You're an artist.
No, we try.
You see things differently from most people.
Well, you have to. You know, I've been in a recording business for 25 years, and I put on a lot of shows all over. And this is another show.
It's show business, isn't it?
This is a show. The stadium is a show. The game is a show. It's all a big show. You know, we're all buying tickets to get in.
In advance of the Republican National Convention in Tampa in 2012, he spent $600,000 to build a big city welcome sign and tower on Interstate 275, coming off the Howard Franklin Bridge from Tampa. His next target was the city-owned Mahaffey Theater. It was in trouble and struggling for years to compete with Ruth Eckerd Hall in Clearwater, the Tampa Bay Performing Arts Center, or Straz Center now in Tampa, the Amalie Arena, and the USF Sundome. The Mahaffey Theater goes back 50 years. It needed a complete overhaul inside and a complete change in programming because it was not drawing consistent crowds for anything. Bill, I've been on this stage many times. It's a beautiful theater.
It sure is.
The Mahaffey Theater was in a lot of trouble before you wound up managing it. What was
Yes,
going on here that didn't work?
Nothing was going on here that worked. It was tough. It was a rental operation. A company had it, and they were renting it, and no one knew it was here to be rented, and so it went unattended.
And an unattended theater is a financial disaster. Edwards offered the city of St. Petersburg $10 million to renovate it if he could keep the revenue. But he rescinded the offer before City Hall acted on it, and he still donated $2 million to renovate this theater and make the Mahaffey an attractive showplace it has now become. But it needed a facelift.
And so it took a lot of work, a lot of ambition, a lot of phone calls, a lot of favors, a lot of everything to start putting shows back into this theater.
They came back in droves when Edwards ignored expensive Broadway tours and lined up big headline performers like Cedric the Entertainer and singers Mark Anthony and Don Henley.
Don Henley played to a full house, and so did Mark Anthony, and so did and so it brought people to the theater who'd never really been here before, and they said, we didn't know it was here. And it's been sitting here we just finished last year our 50th anniversary of this theater. So it was just a matter of rejuvenating and getting it back, and so people knew it was here. And once they became aware it was here, it became more and more popular, and now we sell out most of our shows.
He put singer Tony Bennett in front of a sold-out crowd at the Mahaffey, which he now runs through the Bill Edwards Foundation for the Arts, which he created after eliminating a board of trustees.
Chronicle featuring Bill Edwards will return after this. We now return to Chronicle featuring Bill Edwards.
St. Petersburg has never seen such an aggressive entrepreneur who has put so much money into projects here and personally guided every phase of development. A man who has become one of Tampa Bay's most successful and influential developers and promoters of business, the arts, and now big-time sports, professional soccer. In 2013, he bought controlling interest in the Tampa Bay Rowdies and took over management of Al Lang Stadium that was also needing help. You were in the mortgage business.
Yes.
How did you wind up in soccer?
It's the same thing.
No, it's not. He replaced every seat, improved locker rooms, fan areas, and replaced the big video scoreboard. He turned soccer into a family event with a protected place for kids to play. And the stadium has since become a dynamic force in downtown St. Petersburg.
Well, think about it. You know, it'll employ about between 800 and 1,000 people. That's huge.
Yes,
Okay,
it is.
so it brings in jobs. It also is over at 9:15 in the evening, and so your car is parked. You're here. This downtown is magnificent. It's an amazing downtown, as you know. Restaurants and places to go, and there's always something to do here.
Edwards has major plans to overhaul and expand this landmark stadium without blocking any views.
I'm going to add another 12,000 seats onto it.
Yeah.
But this whole field is kind of different because you don't really see where the field is. The field is behind those walls and all the way behind that corner over there. And so there's plenty of space here. We're just hiding it.
Rowdy's attendance was sagging before he bought the team, even after they won the league championship in 2012. But as soon as he gave the stadium that big facelift, attendance began to surge. Now averages 6,000 a game, third best in the league. He plans to use private, not public money for an $80 million expansion project that would also support big concerts and community events. Space is already available without making it higher than the Mahaffey Theater right beside it and without changing the stadium footprint.
So this is going to be a beautiful place that isn't going to disrupt my neighbors or any of the neighbors, and it's going to make it so everyone can fit in and be in Major League Soccer, which is something, a Major League team in this town is so important.
From shopping center development and professional soccer to music and entertainment, Bill Edwards occasionally finds himself far beyond Tampa Bay. Like a star-studded celebrity charity bash he attended on the edge of the Mediterranean at Monte Carlo. He learned to play a guitar in the service, which helped him move into the music business, and he found himself making records for big stars in his own recording studio on Central Avenue in St. Pete. From here, he began producing big rock shows in Las Vegas with major stars, and coupled with his recording business, he was suddenly with the likes of major recording stars including Alicia Keys, John Cicada, Josh Groban, John Mayer, Toby Keith, and the bands Usher, Kool and the Gang, and Cheap Trick. But Edwards also found himself in a recording business that was becoming far less profitable with the arrival of the internet and streaming video.
The creation of music anymore is not a business. When I got into it many years ago, it was a business, and we made money on different songs with hits. And if it was a great hit, you know, like you saw Rascal Flatts in there, we had some of their music, and they sold 11 million copies, and we got big fat checks out of that. No, there's no checks at all. They're not even skinny ones. You can't imagine.
Paul Anka's picture on the wall out there. Paul Anka had a small part in this at the beginning, didn't he?
Well, Paul came in after I'd started this, and I'd started it, and I said, Paul, you know, we need to, I need to get some talent. I had a couple of acts, but I need to get some more talent. And so Paul and I rented the Mahaffey Theater way back in the day, and we put on this talent show. Oh. Okay, and Paul did about 4 or 5 songs in between the talent, and that drew the crowd, and so we had a full house, and we found some talent, and local talent that was amazing.
And that amazing experience encouraged him to push his new recording business on Central Avenue in St. Pete. That led to producing big shows in Las Vegas. His show with the rock band Cheap Trick is one of his favorites. He put the orchestra high above the band to produce studio quality sound.
And they were all wired together, and it turned out to be much better sound-wise.
It's incredible sound.
I'll let you hear a little of it.
Not to mention good video.
Yeah.
Wednesday morning at 5 o'clock as the day begins.
Chronicle featuring Bill Edwards will return after this. We now return to Chronicle featuring Bill Edwards.
Bill Edwards' drive to succeed also took him out to the beach, where he saved the bankrupt Treasure Island Tennis and Yacht Club. He bought 2 hotels there, and he has a home there. Treasure Island now has a Chamber of Commerce because Bill Edwards financed it. But there is much more to Bill Edwards than buying real estate and building buildings. This man has made a lot of money, and he has also given a lot of it to charity. He put millions into charitable causes, including $3.4 million to the growing medical complex at All Children's Hospital. And no doubt reinforced by his own experience during the war in Vietnam, Edwards helps back the Veterans Airlift Command, a network of more than 900 private pilots who fly wounded veterans to hospitals and get them home. He remains its largest donor.
This war that we've been going through between Afghanistan and Iraq are totally different than the war I was in Vietnam. In Vietnam, we had 50,000 people that were died and 5,000 that lived and were wounded. I'm one of the wounded ones. Okay, I got lucky. But in this war, 50,000 people were wounded and 5,000 people died. Just the numbers are just the opposite.
And to help get the vast number of those wounded and infirmed veterans to hospitals and back to their homes, Edwards became a prime supporter of the Veterans Airlift Command. Because of such tight airport security, that's made it very difficult, if not impossible, for some wounded veterans to take regular commercial flights.
The biggest problem now with all the security and everything that's going on in the world is that they're asked to take off their prosthetics. They're out there. It's so hard for them to travel. So we gathered together, and we slowly but surely we built an Air Force. We call it Veteran Airlift Command, and these are hero flights. And we fly in the vicinity of 3,000 to 4,000 flights a year amongst us all, to veterans going from one place to another for whatever reasons.
Edwards' kinship with veterans started with his own experience as a soldier during the war in Vietnam, when he was shot in combat and severely wounded by a landmine.
You know, I was not supposed to live in the war. When I got shot up, I wasn't supposed to live. So when my parents came to visit me in the hospital after I had got back to Mainside, which was about a month later, They walked right by my bed in the hospital, and they said to the doctor, "Where's our son? We don't see him." And he goes, "He's right there." And they said, "Well, it doesn't look anything like my son." And I said, "Well, you know, he's a guy that was supposed to die and he refuses to, so that's the reason he looks like he does." And then I was told I was never walk again. I'd have to have my leg amputated. And all my life I've done with the, you know, you tell me I can't do it, I'm going to do it twice as hard. You know?
Bill Edwards dropped out of school, finished the 8th grade, didn't go to high school, didn't go to college, took a job on a fishing boat to help provide for his family of 6 brothers and sisters. But then he joined the U.S. Marine Corps and went straight to Vietnam. And it was there that he developed his personal relationship with veterans that never ended. In a way, the war in Vietnam not only helped define Bill Edwards, it played a major role in shaping the Bill Edwards we know today. When you look back on that, did it change your character in some way? I mean, did it make you, you're a real aggressive businessman. A lot of people talk about how aggressive you are. Is that all part of that experience, or has that always been who Bill Edwards is? A very dogmatic kind of person.
I have been aggressive all my life. The Marine Corps helped me more because, you know, the things I got in the Marine Corps were, you know, honor, integrity, loyalty, dedication, things that I didn't pick up in my younger age because I had a big family, and I was too busy working trying to support my sisters and my family.
A Purple Heart and combat medals on the wall of his office remind him that he is a survivor who could just as easily have been killed, or one of those permanently wounded veterans that he tries to help get from place to place now. And it's not only home and hospitals that veterans need to get to. One wounded veteran was home with a young child who had a fatal condition, but there was something he wanted his son to see before he died.
There's some sad stories in this world. He had a little boy that was about 3 or 4 years old, and he had a brain tumor, and he was dying just recently. He wanted to see Disney. So his father, who was a wounded soldier himself, asked for help, and we were closest, so we flew him there, and they spent some time in Disney, and he got his wish before he was going to pass.
Chronicle featuring Bill Edwards will return after this. We now return to Chronicle featuring Bill Edwards.
1 block from Bill Edwards' Sundial, which is right over there, is St. Petersburg's most, exclusive strip of fancy shops, eateries, high-rise condos, and office buildings. This is the Ritz of St. Petersburg, Beach Drive. No one can dispute that Bill Edwards and the success of his projects played an important role, encouraging other developers to invest in St. Pete, like the big Coulter Group from Palm Beach County. That's building a new high-rise Hyatt hotel and 41-story condo complex there on property that Bill Edwards sold to them. More than a dozen blocks away is Tropicana Stadium, which faces an uncertain future as the home of the Tampa Bay Rays. It goes back to the late 80s, opened in the 90s, sat empty for years, but Bill Edwards is the one who's hit a home run in this city because of all of his construction and everything else that's going on around it. That would include the Sundial Shopping Center and popular locale market with high-end restaurants, the Mahaffey Theater and Al Lang Stadium that needed attention. His own recording business, Big 3, in what was the first Raymond James building in St. Petersburg. His Treasure Island Club at the beach and 2 hotels there. And then his charitable support in the millions to All Children's Hospital and, of course, to the Veterans Airlift Command, among several others. All of it makes Bill Edwards a key player, not only for the present, but for the future and the success of St. Petersburg that is also critical to the economic vitality of Tampa Bay. You don't have a degree in business and economics.
Nope.
How did you get so smart at finances?
I think I was born with a brain. I inherited it from my dad. He's a very professional man, and the one thing he was brilliant. And so, hereditarily, I think I got his wisdom.
He is a man with swagger, who's had his run-ins with critics, to be sure, and the legal system, but a man with an empire in a city that not too long ago was little more than a retirement haven with green benches. I don't think you'll ever find Bill Edwards sitting on a bench. This man is too busy building buildings in it and making things happen. And he is more than a survivor. He is a mover and a shaker. I'm John Wilson, and that is Chronicle on MOR.